Imagine needing to run an electrical cable from one country to another. There is only one problem. Between them is an ocean. You cannot simply drop thousands of tons of cable over the side of a ship and hope it lands in the right place. The cable must follow a precisely surveyed route. It must survive enormous tension during installation. It may have to descend hundreds or even more than 1,000 meters beneath the surface. And once it reaches the bottom, specialized machines may have to bury it beneath the seabed, all while a gigantic ship continuously calculates its position, speed, cable tension, ocean currents, and the exact point where the cable touches the bottom. One mistake could damage a cable worth millions of dollars. So how do engineers actually install a massive high-voltage power cable across the ocean floor? This is how engineering works. At first glance, a submarine power cable looks like an extremely thick electrical wire. But cut one open, and you discover an engineered structure containing multiple protective layers. At the center is the conductor, usually copper or aluminum. This carries the electrical current. Around the conductor are carefully engineered insulation and electrical screening layers. High-voltage submarine systems commonly use materials such as cross-linked polyethylene, better known as XLPE, to electrically isolate the conductor. Then come moisture barriers and mechanical protection. And around many submarine cables is heavy steel wire armoring. That armor is important because the cable does not live in a friendly environment. It may encounter rocks, fishing equipment, anchors, ocean currents, movement of the seabed, and enormous mechanical loads during installation. Some submarine cables also contain optical fibers. These can carry communication signals and provide monitoring functions alongside the power circuit. There are also different jobs for different cables. Inter-array cables connect individual offshore wind turbines. Export cables carry electricity from an offshore wind farm toward land, and interconnectors can transmit enormous amounts of electricity between separate regional or national power grids. These underwater links have effectively become electrical highways beneath the ocean. You might expect installation to begin when the cable-laying ship arrives. It actually starts much earlier. Before engineers choose the final route, survey vessels study the seabed, and they are looking for problems. Rock formations, shipwrecks, existing pipelines, other cables, steep slopes, unstable sediment, marine infrastructure, and areas where anchors or fishing equipment could threaten the cable. Sonar can produce detailed images of the seabed. Multi-beam systems map its shape. Sub-bottom profiling can reveal geological layers beneath the surface. And engineers may collect physical samples or conduct geotechnical testing to determine what the seafloor is actually made of. Mud, sand, clay, gravel, or solid rock. That information matters because the seabed determines how the cable will be protected. A cable crossing soft sediment may be buried using water jets or a plow. Rocky areas may require completely different protection. So engineers construct a digital route before the real cable enters the water. The goal isn't necessarily the shortest route, it is the safest route that can actually be installed. This is where the scale becomes extraordinary. Modern cable-laying vessels are floating engineering factories. Inside or on deck are gigantic circular storage systems called carousels or turntables. Kilometers of cable can be coiled onto them, and the cable alone can weigh thousands of tons. The recently introduced Nexans Electra, for example, has 3 turntables with a combined cable capacity of about 13,500 tons. Another latest generation vessel, Prysmian Alessandro Volta, has 3 carousels, providing approximately 19,000 tons of total load capacity. Think about that. The ship isn't carrying boxes of cable. It is carrying kilometers of one of the most carefully manufactured electrical systems ever put into the ocean. And throughout installation, that cable must leave the ship at a carefully controlled rate. Too little tension can allow it to form dangerous loops. Too much tension can overstress it. Too tight a bend can damage its internal layers. The operation therefore becomes a continuous balancing act between the vessel and the cable hanging beneath it. Now we reach one of the most interesting parts. As the ship moves forward, the cable passes through specialized handling equipment and over a cable chute or deployment system. Then, gravity takes over. But the cable doesn't travel vertically downward. Instead, it hangs through the water in a long, curved shape. Engineers must control this curve. At the bottom is one critical location, the touchdown point. That's where the suspended cable first meets the seabed, and engineers need to know where that point is. Sometimes an ROV, a remotely operated underwater vehicle, follows the installation and watches the touchdown area. Modern cable vessels combine these observations with navigation systems, cable payout data, water depth, vessel motion, and tension measurements. The ship itself may use dynamic positioning. Instead of relying only on anchors, computers command multiple thrusters to keep the vessel on its intended track. Wind pushes the ship, waves move it, current tries to carry it sideways, but the positioning system continually compensates. Meanwhile, cable handling machinery controls payout. The whole operation is synchronized. Ship position, ship speed, cable tension, water depth, seabed route, touchdown location. If any of these drift too far outside acceptable limits, the operation may need to slow down or stop. This is why submarine cable installation is far more complicated than unrolling a giant extension cord. You might assume deep ocean is the greatest threat. Often, the area near shore requires some of the most careful protection. Why? Because that's where anchors, fishing activity, waves, currents, and human activity can become major risks. Engineers therefore need to bring the cable from the vessel to land without damaging it. One method involves pulling the cable through a prepared conduit. In some projects, horizontal directional drilling creates a pathway beneath beaches, dunes, roads, or environmentally sensitive shoreline areas. A pulling line can then help bring the submarine cable toward its onshore connection point. From there, the submarine cable transitions into the land-based electrical system. But once the cable is offshore, another protection problem begins. How do you protect hundreds of kilometers of cable sitting on the seabed? Sometimes the answer is bury it. This is one of the best visual moments in the entire process. Engineers can use underwater ploughs or remotely operated trenching machines. Some are enormous. A cable plough is pulled along the seabed. Its cutting components penetrate the soil. The cable is guided downward, and the seabed closes or settles around it. Another approach is water jetting. Powerful jets fluidize or remove seabed material so the cable can settle into the trench. ROV-based trenching equipment can also perform this operation. The exact technique depends heavily on seabed conditions. Soft sediment behaves very differently from dense clay or rock. And burial depth isn't simply a matter of going as deep as possible. Engineers assess the threats expected along each portion of the route and design the protection strategy accordingly. In July 2026, Prysmian announced a new heavy-duty submarine cable plough designed for burial as deep as 5 meters beneath mean seabed level. Other systems include high-powered jet trenching ROVs and jet-assisted ploughs designed for different soil and water conditions. So beneath the installation ship, there can be another machine moving across the darkness of the seabed, digging a trench for an electrical cable that may eventually carry power to millions of people. But what happens if engineers encounter solid rock, or an existing pipeline, or another submarine cable? You can't always dig a trench. In these locations, engineers may use additional protection. Rock can be placed over the cable. Protective structures may cover exposed sections. Specialized crossing arrangements can separate one piece of infrastructure from another, and every crossing must be engineered carefully. Because the cable must remain supported, it cannot be allowed to hang unsupported across a large gap. That can create mechanical stress and movement. Engineers, therefore, monitor the cable's final geometry along the route. The ocean floor is not flat. It contains hills, valleys, trenches, rocks, and shifting sediment, so the cable has to become part of that landscape. There is another engineering decision hiding inside these cables. Should the system transmit alternating current or direct current? For many offshore installations, high-voltage AC systems can be practical, but submarine AC cables have an important electrical characteristic: capacitance. Because the conductor and surrounding conductive layers are separated by insulation, the cable behaves partly like a very long capacitor. As an AC submarine cable becomes longer, charging current becomes increasingly important. Eventually, this consumes more of the cable's current carrying capability. That is one reason very long, high-capacity submarine transmission links often use HVDC, high-voltage direct current. HVDC requires converter stations, but it avoids the same AC charging current limitation along the submarine cable itself. So some of the world's major electricity interconnectors transmit DC beneath the sea and convert the electricity at either end. The cable on the seabed is therefore only one part of a much larger electrical machine. Once installation is completed, the job is not finished. The cable system must be tested. Engineers verify electrical integrity. Connections and terminations are inspected. Data from the installation is reviewed. The final cable route is documented, and protection along the route can be surveyed. ROVs can return to the seabed and inspect the installed system. These machines allow engineers to see conditions that humans may never physically visit. In deep water, the cable may spend decades in near total darkness. But on land, the electricity traveling through it may be lighting cities, feeding industrial facilities, balancing electrical grids, or delivering offshore wind power. Submarine cables are engineered for long service lives, but they can still be damaged. Anchors are a serious threat. Fishing equipment can also interact with cables in certain areas. Seabed movement can create problems, and faults can occasionally develop within the cable itself. Finding the failure is the first challenge. Electrical measurements help engineers estimate where the fault is located. A repair vessel can then travel to the area. The cable may need to be recovered from the seabed. The damaged section is removed. A replacement length is joined to the existing cable. Those joints must reproduce the electrical insulation and mechanical integrity of the original system with extraordinary precision. Then the repaired cable is lowered back into the sea, and where appropriate, protection is restored. Imagine performing high-voltage electrical repair work on infrastructure lying beneath the ocean. That is submarine cable engineering. And demand for this technology is increasing. Offshore wind farms need export cables. Power grids need stronger interconnections. Countries are exchanging electricity across seas. And new high-voltage submarine links are being built over increasingly ambitious distances. This is driving a new generation of installation equipment. Modern ships have enormous cable storage capacities. Multiple carousels, sophisticated dynamic positioning, ROVs, subsea trenching equipment, and in some cases, the ability to install multiple cables during a single campaign. Current industry fleets already include systems designed for cable installation at water depths of around 1,500 meters, while earlier vessels have completed power cable installation at depths around 1,600 meters.
The engineering challenge is no longer simply, can we put a cable underwater? It is, how much power can we move? How far can we move it?
How deep can we install it? And how reliably can we protect it for decades? So the next time you look across an empty ocean, remember, there may be an electrical highway directly beneath it, installed by ships carrying thousands of tons of cable. Guided by sonar, satellites, computers, and underwater robots,
carefully lowered through hundreds of meters of water, tracked to an exact touchdown point, then buried beneath the seabed by machines working in complete darkness. And once installation is complete, nearly all evidence of this extraordinary engineering disappears beneath the waves. That may be the most remarkable part. Some of the world's most important electrical infrastructure is infrastructure most people will never see. If you enjoyed seeing how engineering makes the seemingly impossible possible, subscribe to How Engineering Works, and I'll see you in the next one.